So it'd be great, first of all, if I can just get your view on the keep me up at night issues for each of those sectors, and indeed if there's some level of commonality between each of them.
Yeah. Look, I think in terms of general issues or general challenges that are keeping the industry up at night, they haven't changed an awful lot from 2015 to 2016. I think data remains a problem. Every sector, doesn't matter where you are, has to understand the role that data plays. I would say that being data-driven marketing, but I think we're seeing more and more that businesses, it's not even marketers, it's businesses are having to deal with data. They know that it's not a competitive advantage anymore, it's an absolute necessity, and really need to grasp and get their head around how their businesses use data. And that might be starting from scratch and kind of building the whole data infrastructure, or they might be further along the path. It doesn't matter. We've still got a really big challenge around data and the understanding around data and the role that it plays. So that's, I think, it stays. The other one I think that actually kind of dovetails with that is technology. So marketing technology is a big challenge. Again, it doesn't matter what part of the industry you're in. We're all dealing with technology. We all have to learn how to use the technology, and that kind of gap between what the technology can do and where we're at the moment, which the skills that we've got, there's a gap in between, and it's causing a problem. I think the other area that continues to be a challenge is this idea of moving away from push marketing to pull marketing. So this whole idea of content and engagement and how we now go about trying to really make sure that our customers kind of have that two-way interaction with us. I don't think we're quite there yet. We all know we've got to do it, but how do we go about content marketing and still maintain our revenue and income levels? That's another kind of a key challenge as well. So look, I think that's across the board. For the supplier side of the industry, what I think is a real challenge there is getting cut through. There is so many players out there that have got, whether it be technology or services, that are so relevant to a marketer. But how do you differentiate yourself from the other thousands that are out there and get across to a marketer that we can help you with this part here, and we're the best at doing that? And when I look at your mediascapes, that just for me sums it up from a supply side of the market. How on earth do we get this message across, and how do we make it clear what our role is? So I think that's a big challenge. From the agency side, slightly different. I think agencies are still challenged with what is their new role. So as marketers are bringing a lot of the things in-house and doing it themselves, what is the role of an agency? And they don't want to be kind of pulled down into just the delivery side of things, and really need to be up in that kind of strategic and ideas place. And there's just needs to be a little bit of a readjustment in the agency world now to make sure that they are really playing to their strengths and are not being seen as a commodity.
That's exactly right. And I think the thing that comes across to me from all of those sectors is, again, that pace of change. And I just, that is now the new normal for all of us in the industry. We need to be on the curve, ahead of the curve. We can never stand still again. When I started in the industry a long time ago, 30 years ago, it was slow. Things happened, but it was slow. Now it's almost a daily thing. Now the challenges that, that's what makes the industry exciting, but the challenges that come along with that are the things that you recognise. The changing nature of marketing, so more from the inbound to the outbound, the outbound to the inbound. And I can see that Alex Allwood is watching us live. She's the principal of an agency called Holler, which is a customer experience agency. I'm hearing a lot about customer experience at the moment. Oh, she's giving me some thumbs up. I'm hearing lots about customer experience at the moment. That does seem to be, marketers are really wondering about the better experiences they can give to their customers as they're coming as they're reaching their site or interacting with them. Agencies, yes, constantly having to change tact, absolutely. Media also, and we'll talk about that a little toward the end, because there's some things I want to say about some things that have happened this week. So thank you, Jodie. That's good. The keep up at night issues for the industry. Perhaps if we can now have a quick chat about ADMA. How long have you been there, by the way, now?
You know, everyone always says to me, "Oh, it's about 3 years you've been there, isn't it?" And it's actually 5. So in April it's 5 years. Yeah. So it's gone like that, but yeah, 5 years.
And ADMA, would I be right in saying that ADMA are one of the original industry organisations, albeit very evolved now?
Yeah. So ADMA was established in 1966. So we've been around a long time. It's actually it's our birthday this year, so that's an exciting time. So it's our 50th birthday, and yeah, so we started off as a lobbying organisation, very much kind of around the issues with data still, and how marketers that were in the direct mail industry at that time could use data for marketing purposes. And it's been a big kind of transformation over the last 50 years to where we are today. And you probably know that around 3.5, 4 years ago, we changed both our name and our focus, really. So previously it was direct marketing, and we very much kind of embrace direct marketing still, and all of those kind of skill sets that go behind it, which are seeing this huge comeback. But now it's very much into that kind of data-driven space, data-driven marketing. So the way that we kind of structure ourselves and the subject matters that we cover, sitting right at the heart of what we do and what we represent is customer experience. It's all about the customer, and sitting around the edge of that we have data, technology, content, creative and digital. So there are 5 kind of core areas that sit around the customer experience, and that's really the footprint of ADMA now.
The footprint of ADMA, and indeed the new training, or the new ADMA IQ training program, is based around those 5 pillars, and we will talk about that a little more in a moment.
And that's right, yeah. So in fact, it's the way that we try and approach the industry now, because as we said just a moment ago, it is really, really complex out there. You could choose 100 subject matters to cover as an industry association, and you still wouldn't have the full range of the industry included in that. So what we try to do is distill it down to something manageable, that we can kind of represent out there to the market, and it makes sense, and people can look at that and go, I'm into data, so I fit within ADMA, or I'm in creative, I fit within ADMA, I've got a home there. So yes, we kind of structure a lot of what we do around those kind of 6 core areas.
6 core areas. I suppose the structure gives you space to add another core area if that need arises. I mean, I think that's one of the exciting things about being in our industry now, is there's always something new to get your head around.
Do you know that I think the other thing that's changed, and it's interesting from a marketing or a marketer's perspective, is that really what we're talking about now is not just marketing, it's business. And the role that a marketer plays isn't just sitting in marketing doing a marketing role, it's actually a cross-business role. And particularly when you're getting into things like customer experience, you can't say that customer experience sits within marketing, because without the support of IT, without the support of the analytics team, without the support of the sales team, all of that plays into customer experience too. So I think we're finding that even that marketing role is extending outside of a marketing department. It's going into a bigger business role, and it's becoming that kind of representation of the customer. And that's, I guess, what we're reflecting as an association as well.
Great. And certainly there's often a lot of talk about the CMO getting a seat at the boardroom table, where they should rightly be. And indeed, perhaps a thought might be that marketing now is a more numbers and data-driven sector. You can get that seat at the table, at the boardroom table, because of course boardrooms are very numbers focused.
Yeah. Yes and no. I think it's still challenging, and I do a lot of work with boards and boards of directors, and it's still quite traditional in the way that many boards, not all, thankfully, approach board meetings, and often it is very focused just on revenue numbers, etc., risk, some around kind of staffing, and marketing often doesn't come up at the boardroom table, but it absolutely should do. And to your point, I think what's slightly starting to happen is that they're putting someone in there to represent the customer rather than representing marketing, and that's a slightly different shift, and it makes it a much easier transition to sit at the board table if you're representing your customer base rather than the marketing, which is seen as a function. So look, I hope more boards embrace that, because it really does need to happen.
I think that is such an interesting point. the customer. I mean, at the end of the, you're right, that's really what marketing should be representing at its core. And if it's looked at in that way from the boardroom table, then of course they should be there, whereas there has been some resistance before. Let's move on to perhaps something that's a little controversial, but we want to get through it because I think it's an important question to ask. Yep. She knows what's coming. This morning on Mediascope's newsletter, I of course highlighted the industry organisation's Mediascape, and that has been going for some time. That one has kept me fairly busy of late, yeah. Jodie. I'm sure. There has been a little bit of movement there. But really wanted to get your sense of that landscape. You know, as we've discussed before, 2 weeks ago, ADMA and AMEA came together after AMEA got into difficulties last year. Today in the press, there's some news about the Australian Marketing Institute sort of rearranging their board. We've also seen industry organisations such as Publishers Australia really struggle to find their place and eventually go into decline. Yep. In the last few weeks, there's been talk about some of the TV industry organisations joining forces. It does seem to me, as someone who obviously keeps a close eye on this landscape, is that there is crossover, perhaps cannibalisation. What are your views on the industry organisations that are out there?
Look, I think particularly in our space, marketing, media, etc., is a very crowded industry association space. We've got a lot of industry associations. The reason for that, you know, is historical in that previously we had quite defined specializations in marketing and media. So, you know, for us at the time, we were the Direct Marketing Association. So, you know, we had a very carved out space, and, you know, we had the IAB who was looking around online measurement, and you had AANA who was looking after the big advertisers, and everyone kind of had their part of the market, which made sense at the time. But as you know, everything's starting to come together, and you know, there's not so much differentiation anymore. There becomes more crossover with the associations, and so you're finding that, you know, there's probably 30–40% crossover in what they're doing. So yeah, we've moved away from that niche space, and majority of the associations are starting to cross over. I think the other thing that we do need to take into account in the market is that we also see competition from different places. So it was previously that associations would always do things like the awards programs. They'd always do the big conferences and events where they'd do education. But now we're seeing publishers do that. So, you know, we see B&T or Umbrella or Ad News who are also putting on those programs. So the landscape's changed in that way too, in terms of we're now actually competing in a strange way with publishers and others. Where does this need to go? What I don't think you can end up with is one giant big marketing association, because I think if you become too broad, you end up standing for nothing. So I do think there is still a place for some degree of niche or specialisation in associations, and that will probably continue. But what I think is important for us, and what I am always laser focused on, and where I think some associations have fallen down, you know, some of the ones that perhaps aren't around anymore, is as an association you have to be valuable. You have to look at your membership base and go, what's that membership base need from me, and what do we need to put in place to make sure we're delivering on that. It is not good enough now to have a couple of events going on and, you know, and a newsletter that goes out every couple of weeks. That is not enough. You've really got to look at the industry challenges, the points that are keeping people up at night, and go, how do we help people along that path? And I think when I came to ADMA 5 years ago, the first thing we did was went, who is our audience? We want to have everyone from entry-level marketer up to CMO. We know the specializations, and let's make sure we're delivering something for every part of our audience. And we continue to do that. That's what needs to happen. And will there be further consolidation? I think there'll be a little bit. I think there'll be a little bit of consolidation that will go on. But I don't think it will end up, as I said, as one giant big marketing association.